The truth was never meant to be seen. If you are watching this right now, then you are already ahead of millions who still believe the carefully crafted illusion. But what you are about to hear changes everything. Not rumors, not speculation, but something far more dangerous. A document that was never supposed to leave a locked system. A contract so precise, so deliberate, that it rewrites the entire story you thought you knew about Dylan Wang and Shen Yue. Stay with me until the very end, because every second from this moment forward pulls back another layer of a reality hidden in plain sight, and if you want the full truth, you cannot look away now. It began in silence. No dramatic announcement, no public celebration, no trail of hints left for fans to follow. Just a quiet shift that no one noticed at the time. Back then, everything seemed normal. Public appearances continued, interviews felt routine, and nothing suggested that behind closed doors, something life-altering had already taken place. Until a file appeared. Not on a major platform, not through an official source, but buried deep within a private digital archive that only a handful of insiders even knew existed. At first, it looked like nothing more than another routine document, the kind that passes through management teams every day without drawing attention. But then someone opened it, and everything changed. The header alone was enough to freeze the room. It was not labeled as a rumor, not marked as a draft, but structured as a finalized agreement. Names clearly written, dates precisely aligned, clauses outlined with a level of detail that left no room for interpretation. And there they were, side by side, unmistakable. Dylan Wang, Shen Yue, bound not by speculation, not by fan theories, but by something official, something legal, something that had been hidden in plain sight. The moment that realization hit, the atmosphere shifted instantly. What was once considered a distant possibility suddenly became undeniable. Every line of the document added weight to the revelation, each clause tightening the reality that this was not a casual agreement, but a carefully constructed contract designed to protect something deeply personal. And then came the clauses. This was where things moved from shocking to unbelievable. Confidentiality terms stretched across multiple sections, each one more restrictive than the last. Specific conditions outlined how their relationship must be presented publicly, how interactions were to be managed, and most importantly, how the truth was to remain concealed under all circumstances. It was not just about privacy. It was about control. Control over narratives, over timing, over perception. One clause in particular stood out, not because it was longer or more complex, but because of what it implied. It detailed the requirement to maintain separate public identities despite a shared private life. Appearances, statements, even social interactions had to follow a predetermined structure that ensured no direct confirmation would ever surface. For years, fans speculated. For years, small moments were analyzed, glances replayed, interactions dissected frame by frame. And yet, according to this document, every single one of those moments existed within a system designed to reveal nothing. It was a perfect illusion. But illusions do not last forever. As the document continued to circulate among a growing number of insiders, reactions ranged from disbelief to complete shock. Some refused to accept it, convinced it had to be fabricated. Others began connecting it to past events, revisiting timelines, re-examining moments that once seemed insignificant. Suddenly, everything started to align. That unexplained absence during a major event. That carefully worded interview that avoided a direct answer. That moment when their paths seemed to cross unexpectedly, yet neither acknowledged it publicly. It was never random. It was structured. Every move, every silence, every decision shaped by the terms of a contract that no one knew existed. And then came the most unexpected twist. A secondary file. Smaller, less detailed at first glance, but containing something far more revealing. Addendums. Adjustments made over time, reflecting changes not just in circumstance, but in emotion. Because contracts can define actions, but they cannot fully contain feelings. Within those revisions were subtle shifts that hinted at something deeper than obligation. Language that moved from strictly formal to something almost personal. Clauses that allowed for flexibility under certain conditions, as if the rigid structure had begun to bend under pressure. which raised a question no one was prepared to answer. What happens when something that starts as an agreement becomes something real? As this possibility spread, the narrative took on a life of its own. Fans who had once debated theories now found themselves confronting something far more complex. This was no longer about guessing. It was about understanding. Understanding how two individuals managed to exist in two completely different realities at the same time. One public, carefully controlled, and endlessly analyzed. The other private, protected by layers of legal precision and silence. Meanwhile, the industry itself began to react. Quietly at first, then more noticeably, because a revelation like this does not just affect the people at its center. It challenges the entire system around them. It raises questions about how many other stories have been shaped, how many truths have been hidden, and how much of what the public sees is actually real. And still, neither side has made an official statement. No confirmation. No denial. Just silence. A silence that now feels louder than anything they could possibly say. Because the document exists. The details are out there. And the story is no longer contained. So, where does that leave us? Right at the edge of something even bigger. Because if this contract is real, if these clauses truly govern their lives for so long, then this leak is not just a revelation. It is a turning point, a moment where everything can change. The carefully maintained balance between privacy and public image is now under pressure. The narrative that was once controlled is beginning to slip, and with every passing moment, more people are starting to see the cracks.
So, do not look away now.
Because this is only the beginning. More details are expected to surface. More connections will be made. And the truth, once hidden behind layers of silence and precision, is finally stepping into the light. Stay with this story, follow every update, and be ready, because the next revelation could change everything you thought you knew about Wang Shen Yue forever. And just when everyone thought the leak had already revealed everything, something even more unsettling began to surface. It started quietly. A timestamp, buried deep within the contract files, almost overlooked, but once discovered, it changed the entire direction of the story. The date did not align with what the public had always believed. It pointed to a moment far earlier than anyone expected, a time when both Wang and Shen Yue were still presenting completely different narratives to the world. And that meant one thing. This was not recent. This had been hidden for years. As insiders began reconstructing the timeline, the pieces started falling into place with almost terrifying precision. Events that once seemed unrelated were now connected. Public appearances where they stood just a little too far apart. Interviews where certain questions were subtly redirected. Moments when one would suddenly disappear from the spotlight while the other carried on, as if nothing had changed. It was never coincidence. It was coordination. Then came the second layer of the discovery. Encrypted communication logs referenced within the contract itself. Not the messages themselves, but records of their existence. Dates, durations, coded identifiers. Enough to suggest that there was an entire private channel of communication operating alongside their public lives. And suddenly, the silence between them in public felt louder than ever. Because behind that silence, something constant had been happening. Something continuous. Something real. But the most shocking moment had not even arrived yet. A source close to the situation revealed that one clause within the agreement had recently been triggered. A contingency clause. One that only activates under specific conditions, conditions tied to exposure, to risk, to the possibility that the truth could no longer remain contained. Which means this leak may not have been accidental. It may have been inevitable. As this realization spread, the atmosphere shifted again. Fans were no longer just reacting, they were anticipating. Waiting for the next move, the next confirmation, the next crack in the carefully constructed wall that had protected this secret for so long. Meanwhile, the industry itself seemed to pause. Because if this is true, if this contract is as real as it appears, then it does not just reveal a hidden relationship. It exposes a system capable of maintaining that level of secrecy for years without a single confirmed slip. And that raises a much bigger question. What else is being hidden? Right now, neither side has stepped forward. No statement. No denial. No explanation. Just a growing storm of speculation and a rising demand for answers. And here is where it becomes impossible to ignore. Because if that contingency clause has truly been activated, then what comes next is not silence. It is escalation. More documents. More confirmations. Possibly even a direct acknowledgement that changes everything in a single moment. So stay with the story. Because what you are seeing now is only the surface. The real truth, the full story, is still unfolding, and the next reveal could happen at any time.